Hello, I'm Jane Stoneham, Director of the Sensory Trust, and I'm delighted to be joining you, although I'm obviously really disappointed not to be able to be there for real to spend time with you all in Leeds. But it's a great opportunity to still share some insights from the work of the Sensory Trust and obviously some perspectives from the new outdoor accessibility guidance. The Sensory Trust, for those of you who don't know us, is a UK organisation. We're based in Cornwall and we have inclusion and nature at our heart. So all our work is about improving access to the outdoors and creating memorable and engaging nature-based experiences. It's through our project work that we develop new ideas and we test them and we share them then as widely as we can. And I would just like to share a few highlights from some of our current work so that you get a better idea of what we get up to. The benefits of bringing nature into the lives of young people is now very well recognised, and we want to make sure that these benefits are shared by young people with additional needs. So this work has been important to us for a long time now. We work with schools and we work with young people who live at home with their families. We share sensory rich learning resources and nature-based activities so that young people can get out and about and immersed in nature and very much learn and develop through those experiences. And the importance of nature in supporting people to live well with dementia is also increasingly well understood, which is fantastic. It's an area that's been important to us for many years, and we've seen firsthand how valuable it is for people to be engaging in activities like walks and gardening and photography and the arts. An area that we're actively developing at the moment is our focus on language. We've had a strong interest in inclusive communication for a long time, but we're especially keen at the moment to look at languages and communication methods that people rely on as their primary means of sharing information. So, for example, Braille and BSL and Widget. And when these languages aren't available, it often means that people are having to rely on second-hand information rather than being able to direct their experiences independently. So, for example, we're working with deaf people who are creating new signs in BSL for plants and nature, and with Widget who are creating new symbol sets in that communication method. And we're also exploring the use of Braille and how that can be used to best effect out and about in nature areas. It's a very exciting area for us, and we'll be keeping you updated as we move further through things. So do keep an eye on the website. And a very important part of our work is using a sensory-rich approach to connect people with nature and the outdoors. Now this is either through actual outdoor experiences, but also through creating resources that we can share more widely. We're working actively in heritage settings at the moment where we're exploring sensory-rich interpretation and bringing in different ways of enabling people to have a richer experience with these heritage environments. When we've made resources as part of our project work, they've been really well received. So this is something that we've continued to do and we've expanded. So we regularly make resources. For example, our scavenger hunt in a card game called Go Find It, and also things like our sensory marker trail kit as a way of people who are keen to install a sensory trail but don't want to make lots of infrastructure changes. It's quite a flexible technique for bringing trails into a site in a very light touch way. Improving access relates more to our consultancy and guidance work, and it involves running access reviews and advising on access issues and helping people find the way through to overcoming access challenges or just simply opening up greater opportunities. It's a very strong basis of our work, and it obviously relates very closely to the theme of this conference. And it relates closely to the guidance that we've been making over the years. This is very dear to our hearts, is providing guidance and sharing it widely. We've made our own guides, like Making Connections, with a focus on green space. We've worked with other organisations and agencies like English Heritage and Heritage Lottery on the original easy access to historic landscapes, and with learning through landscapes, looking at children's school environments in grounds for sharing. And then we have the bioreasonable means guides, which I'm sure some of you will be familiar with that we developed back in 2005 with the agencies that are now Natural England and Natural Resources Wales, and I'll be updating a little bit on those in a few minutes. And of course, the most important piece of work that we've been focused on more recently is the development of the outdoor accessibility guidance, and it's just been an honour to work with Pastoral on creating this publication, and a lot of people have contributed to its development. Some of those people, I am very confident, are there in Leeds today, so I just want to say a real heartfelt thank you again to you. The outdoor accessibility guidance is designed as a reference for anyone improving access to the outdoors. So if you are managing or designing an outdoor space and want to open it up to a wider diversity of people, we very much hope that this guidance will help you with that. At its heart, the outdoor accessibility guidance is about responding to diversity, and in our experience, when you embrace the real diversity of people and work with people with different lived experiences, it brings a richness into the process and to the plans and ideas that you are developing, and we end up with places that are simply better for everybody. And then the aim becomes really creating an equality of experience for people. This doesn't mean creating the same experience for everybody, but what it does mean is that the combination of experiences that each person has should add up to something that is equally great. And I think it's important to reflect on where the barriers to access actually come from. Most of the barriers that we see out in the outdoor environment, many of them are the results of decisions that have been made. So somebody at some time decided to do something in a certain way, and whether that was a path width or a particular surface or the way a bridge is designed or a gate, all of those decisions determined who it is and isn't accessible to. So really at the heart of all this, we have to talk about changing the basis of how we make these sorts of decisions, and that really is crucial if we are going to make places more widely accessible and get away from the pattern of putting in place things that then need constant modification or retrofits, or where the maintenance program is trying to deal with things that really shouldn't have been put there in the first place. So the process of all this is really very important. Technical guidance is the most important element of the publication. This is what many people asked us to prioritize, and we took note. So you'll find in there lots of technical guidance sheets on elements ranging from paths and routes and widths and gradients and different types of use, through to facilities like seating and planning events, and through to the very important area of communication and really thinking about what that means when it comes to sharing information and things like signage. And signposting and aligning with existing guidance and sources of expertise was really important. And this is where I wanted to just flag up the bioreasonable means guides, because I'm really pleased to share that we are working now with Natural England and Natural Resources Wales to align these with the new OAG, and the plan is to bring these together as one guide, so it won't be a separate Wales and England guide going forward. It will be one bioreasonable means. This isn't far off, so do keep an eye on the websites to see when this then becomes available. So I mentioned the importance of process in all this. So actually the principles that are included in the guidance are also a really important aspect, and these are they're alongside tools and examples that are intended to help show how to embed a more inclusive approach. And there's one of the principles that I'd really like to pick up today and talk a little bit more about, because it's something that we use a lot in our work and is featured very strongly in the guidance, and that is the access chain. So we made the access chain a couple of decades ago, and the reason we made it was because it was apparent that access improvements were really being focused specifically on sites and routes themselves, and missing some of the barriers that people with different lived experiences were telling us were impacting them in other ways. So the chain identifies 4 steps involved in somebody deciding to go somewhere, and it starts with that decision to visit. It runs through a second step of the journey and actually arriving somewhere, and it's not till step 3 that you actually get to the detail of thinking about the site or route itself. And then the 4th step is when people actually leave for home, and the sorts of impressions that they leave with, which can have a direct impact on whether they decide to go again or go somewhere similar again. First step of the chain is when someone decides whether to visit somewhere or not. It's usually they'll be at home and they're considering really whether a place looks like it's for them and whether it's really considered their needs. And first and foremost really is a question of, well, what's on offer? And what's very easy, I think, in the world of access information is to almost forget about this. But this is about highlights. What's the motivation? Why do I want to go there? And if I'm looking at a range of options, do I see myself or my interests reflected in those? So if someone's looking at a website, it's very much to do with looking at, what the images tell you. What people are being presented to you, do they actually suggest that I've been thought about? Are there different ages of people? Is there a diversity of people, or am I tending to see that this place really has focused in on a certain quite narrow section of people? And what diversity of experiences and activities are available, and are those being shared with me? All of this will very much influence somebody's decision. And it will be really impacted by, if you have a lot of pictures that even inadvertently highlight big access challenges, stepping stones, steps, steep grades, rough surfaces, and forget to actually show some of the more accessible areas, then again, these things will just give a suggestion that perhaps accessibility hasn't really been taken on board. What can be very reassuring is to come across something that is about access information and even language, knowing that there are phrases like accessible, accessibility, inclusive, these sorts of terms that suggest that thought has been given. And then the information itself is really helpful to people to be able to make their own decision about what's going to be good for them. And it's a really key principle, and I'm sure I won't be either the first or the only person to say, but it's a really important principle not to prejudge for other people. The important thing is to give the information in the spirit that it's for people themselves to work out what that means for them. And then pre-visit maps, things like this, again, very helpful. It might not be that if I'm looking at that, I'll absorb all the information, but what I might take from it is that, oh my goodness, that's great, there's flexibility there, there's different routes. When I go there, I know I'm going to have options. I might print it off and take it with me. But it's just really helpful to have these pieces of information and reassurance provided to me at that stage. So then we move to the second step, which is about the journey and arrival and what that's going to be like. This is a really important step where we're thinking about transport, but also what's it going to be like if I'm driving there, and what are the arrangements for me to be able to park my car, for example. Again, this is very much to do with information and knowing the situation with things. So if I'm a wheelchair user and I want to be reassured that there is accessible parking, I also would like to be reassured that if I leave my car and then I come back to it, I've got a good chance of being able to get back in the car because there are markings there, for example, and people haven't inadvertently parked too close. Things like public transport, this is very likely not to be your remit, but what is within your remit is sharing information that you know. So if you know there's a local bus service and it's accessible and there's a bus stop actually not far away, all of those things are really important to share with people, so that again it's reassurance, practical information that's really helpful. And if people find that the parking and drop off actually is full of issues like potholes and spillage of large aggregate that makes the going really challenging, it might just be enough to make people turn around and go home. Having equipment on hire, it's really great to see so many more places now making mobility scooters and wheelchairs available for people. Things like portable seating, really, really helpful. Seating is one of the most important things you can do to improve accessibility for people who have mobility issues and are ambulant. And the great thing about the portable seating, it shouldn't replace the need to have obviously other seating as well, but it does give people more flexibility. It gives them a chance to sit when they want to. Step 3 is what happens actually on site at the place itself, and of course this is where a lot of the detail happens, and this is where a lot of things will be directly in your remit to consider and work out. Routes are obviously a fundamental element when we're thinking about access on a site, and how level they are, how wide they are, surfaces. There's a lot of information in the guidance about these, and thinking about what different routes offer to people. And thinking about how different people want to be engaging with your place. So if somebody, a couple of people are coming and they want to chat in BSL, well, it means they need path widths that can accommodate that. It doesn't really work when you're walking crocodile fashion. Equally, if people are interested in group activities, as much greater use of adaptive bikes and other mobility equipment now, which is fantastic to see, and will be changing really the way that people can go out and about. So thinking about how sites can best accommodate these sorts of activities. And very much connected to this is signage and wayfinding. People need to know obviously which way to go. If for example, if people have limited stamina, they really don't want to be wasting their limited energy on going the wrong way and having to backtrack. Equally, people quite often appreciate the reassurance of some way marking if they're following a particular route, and some people can get very anxious if that's not there. Again, same principle, that they want to be sure that they are actually following that route and they know how far that's going to be. Seating I've highlighted already, and shelter and shade will become more important as our climate is shifting. Seating is one of the most straightforward mitigations that you can make to improve accessibility, and it's needed by a lot of people. For some people, if it isn't there, they simply won't be able to visit. And toilets are fundamental, not possible on all sites of course, but what is possible is to highlight through the information hopefully where the nearest toilets are, so at least people know where to go and find them. Changing places are increasing in number, which is fantastic to see. I remember being told by a family who had a child with profound and multiple learning disabilities that when a changing places facility was introduced somewhere that they enjoyed going, it basically transformed things for them. They could previously only really go there for up to an hour, and when the changing places facility was there, they could easily spend a day. So really valuable facilities. And then thinking about facilities like bird hides and cafes and viewing points, and thinking about the larger mobility vehicles now like trampers. And is there space for people to get in and about and you know, to maneuver and enjoy those spaces? Can a grandparent and a grandchild enjoy a bird hide together, and with the viewing heights accessible to them and seating in place? Accessible information, this relates back really to what I was talking about with languages, and this is an example of where Braille has been included in a site, and it's, you know, it's a valuable resource for anyone who's reading Braille. This means that they can actually independently access that information for themselves. It also, though, does another thing which is really important. It says to someone, actually, we expected you to be here. And site information generally, making sure that there is accessible information available. You know, large print guides, really valuable for people to be able to use when they're there. The example of an access map where it's highlighting key things that people will appreciate knowing, along with obviously the key highlights. And play, a big shout out really for more inclusive play. It's an area that still just very sadly gets overlooked, not thinking about children with additional needs as part of the mix, but also thinking about parents and grandparents who may be disabled and obviously want to be able to get near to the play facilities, and not forgetting, of course, that play doesn't necessarily just have to be for the kids. As adults, it's nice to be able to play too. And then the fourth step, the return home, a significant part of the journey for people. This is where really it's about what impressions people leave with. So things that are important to think about is, you know, how far is it back to the car park? Is there seating next to the waiting point for taxis or public transport? Is there information to go away with? You know, what is it that people carry with them when they actually leave? You can find more information about the access chain and the other areas that I've mentioned in the Outdoor Accessibility Guidance, and you can download that from the Paths for All website as highlighted here. You can also find out more about the work that we do at Sensory Trust from our website that we've provided here. We're a friendly bunch, so if there's anything you'd like to talk to us about, do get in touch. I will just mention about on the OAG, we are planning to regularly update it, so do please let us know if you've got any thoughts about case studies or anything that you think would be good to put into a later version. Okay, it's been a pleasure to join you, albeit virtually. I do hope you have a fabulous couple of days, and sending you all best wishes from Cornwall. Thank you, and bye.